So here we are at the Denver Botanic Gardens, and we've been able to wrangle old Dan Johnson over here to help us out today. A lot of people have problems with shade gardens, but you guys have done a phenomenal job of making it interesting.
Well, it does keep us busy, but there's a great palette of plants that work in dry shade and moist shade for our area. So it's really just a matter of choosing the right plants and not giving up. A lot of people think those areas are just impossible, but they've probably tried things that just aren't suited to those conditions. So.
Well, let's talk about shade for just a minute. Let's define shade. I mean, in this area, it's in shade, no direct sun, really, for the majority of the day.
Right, and that's probably the case for most people, that they're getting either dappled shade through the trees with a little sunlight filtering through sometimes a day, or there may even be edges of the garden that get full sun, but then it's more shade further back in.
Exactly.
Unless it's really shaded by a building or something solid where the sun just doesn't get through at all, you're going to have a mix of dappled light.
You mentioned moist shade versus dry shade. We were talking earlier, and amongst 3 or 4 of us, we all had a different idea what dry shade is.
Dry shade can be caused by a lot of things, whether it's just a difficult area to water, or you have tree roots that compete and take a lot of the water out of the soil before other plants can get it, or you might have very sandy soil that dries out quickly, or clay soil where water doesn't penetrate well. So it's a whole host of things can contribute to dry shade.
Sure.
Wet shade could be because moisture just stays there longer, it doesn't get as much sun, or because the ground is contoured to concentrate water in some places, those kinds of things. So,
well, let's walk along this path here, because there's some beautiful plants I'd like to highlight. The lady's mantle right here at your feet, that looks good in sun or shade.
Yeah, it gets beautiful kind of chartreuse flowers in early spring, so it really brightens up a shady landscape.
And then in the denser shade, things like the hellebores or the Lenten rose or Christmas rose, a lot of people call that.
The hellebores are nice because they're reasonably evergreen in our area, and they do bloom, one of the first plants to bloom in the spring. So you're getting some activity in that shade garden. As soon as the snow is gone, really, those flowers are coming up as early as February and March.
And right beside that, a beautiful hosta. That's nice.
Yeah, hostas come in so many different flavors these days. All kinds of variegation, gold, green, blue types of leaves. The other thing I really like in this garden with the anemone, the dwarf oak leaf hydrangea, and the hostas is the real strong contrast between those leaf forms and size and the sweet woodruff ground cover, which is virtually bulletproof.
One of my favorite plants for a ground cover, but it is a little invasive. So it
does spread. It's not easy to get rid of if you want to get rid of, but it doesn't have deep roots. It just has wide spreading roots.
Right. So Dan, MJ is waiting to talk to you on the other side of the gardens in a different shady garden. It's a more natural looking thing. It's a completely different look and feel, and I'm going to send you off to find her right now.
Great.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate your talking with us.
Thanks for coming down.
You bet.
Dan, thanks for joining me. Sure. I am excited because I'm in a little bit more of a lush area of the shade garden that I love, especially because it kind of has this woodland rainforest appearance with some of the more established ferns.
Yeah, ferns are kind of a traditional woodland plant, and they do add a lot to make the feeling of a woodland garden and the appearance of it being much more lush.
What are some of the exact varieties that we see here?
The ferns, some of the ones that are in here are Japanese painted fern. There are a lot of other ones that do well. There's several cultivars of Japanese painted fern with different amounts of variegation in them. They do quite well. Lady fern, there's quite a number that do grow well for us. And what's great about that background is that it's very low maintenance. Again, a lot of that is the mahonia that we saw in the other gardens. And you can see the blue fruits on some of this. It's a little more established. But it's a very low maintenance plant. While this edge is kept fairly moist and has the ferns and such, in the background, it's a much more low maintenance and less water use as well.
Well, I love these plants, and the best part about the plants that we've looked at is Keith and I had a chance to go out to Paulinos Gardens, and a lot of the plants that we see here, we've been able to go there, and you're going to be able to shop for all of these plants right there and see all the varieties that are available at those gardens. So thank you so much for showing us through the gardens.
No problem.
And we're headed to Paulinos to see exactly everything they have for you in your shade garden.
Well, while we were at the Denver Botanic Gardens, we saw some really great examples of shade gardening. And Dan talked about a lot of the plants I have here right on this cart. What I wanted to show you is while you're at the nursery, right now I'm at Paulinos Gardens in their shady perennial area, but you can find these plants at any good quality garden center during the summer here. I wanted to show you a couple of examples of the sizes of plants that you can find in the garden centers. Now, a lot of times you want great big plants. I mean, a lot of people want instant gratification when they plant, so they choose these big gallon pots. If you're like me and are a little on the cheap side, I like to buy smaller pots. I mean, there is a difference in size, but by next spring, you're not going to be able to tell whether you planted a gallon or a 4-inch pot. You've saved some money. And another nice tip about buying the smaller plants, you don't have to dig as big a hole, so it's not as much work to plant them. So you can see the difference here that I've got on the ladies' mantle, a little difference in the hostas. Now, many times the 4-inch pots you won't find quite as big a selection. There won't be as many varieties in the smaller pot, but if you're okay with that, you can save some good money. And this is also the time of year when garden centers are starting to put their perennials and annuals on sale, so you can even save some extra bucks that way. And it makes a difference when you're buying a big plant like this or a smaller plant like this. There's a lot of difference in size, but what you're buying is potential. You're not really buying this exact plant, because next year it's going to grow a whole new plant. Might as well get something that's going to be nice and small and inexpensive to put in. Plus, they're a little easier to take care of, I think, during the summer months when it's hot. Of course, you're going to be in the shade, so it's not quite as stressful. But once you get these plants in the ground, you'll need to check them daily to make sure that they're moist enough. And be sure to check the original root ball, not the soil you filled in around the outside, because all the roots are still going to be in the original root ball. And so it will dry out faster than your backfill will. So that should get you started with your shade garden. And next we're going to go see some container gardens that we planted a couple of months ago, and we'll see what their progress looks like.
Howdy, I'm Chef Mick Rosacci from Tony's Markets. Today, green beans. We're going to make Italian-style green beans. Come right back.